So the Arrowverse is dead. I mean, it's not actually dead, but most of the shows have ended or been canceled, and the shows that are currently airing are very loosely connected, with the exception of The Flash, and I think most people just have a negative view of The Flash, so they probably just want it to end already. But the Arrowverse was a lot of fun, and it was a series of shows in a universe that I was really invested in. It got me thinking about all the other ideas for shows that were not necessarily picked up or were axed off when the whole thing was going on with Warner Brothers. So let's look at the previous potential spin-offs for the Arrowverse. I barely remember this happening, but apparently in 2015, before Legends of Tomorrow, they wanted to give Ray Palmer his own solo show, which makes 10 times more sense. Ray Palmer was one of the most interesting aspects of Season 3 of Arrow. He was a more naive character, but he was trying to do the whole vigilante thing, but in a more traditionally heroic way, instead of Oliver Queen, who shoots people with arrows like a lunatic. Seeing them two clash heads was a really important step for Oliver, because he was starting to see how his influence as the Green Arrow was kind of branching out to other people in other cities. And with the Flash in Central City, having the Atom there it was really good to see Oliver can kind of face the more heroic version of himself that he could be. And we could have seen Ray Palmer played by Brandon Routh on his own show. Brandon Routh is one of the most talented lead actors and the most famous, and it's really unfortunate he got shoved onto a TV show with a bunch of other characters, and the show just progressively became more and more farcical. I like the more interesting, multi-layered version of Ray Palmer we got in Season 2 of Arrow, who became a superhero because his wife was killed by a deathstroke. And it would have been cool to see the Atom actually fight some of his villains on his own show instead of having them be throwaway characters on the Flash TV show. The idea of Mia Queen being the lead of her own show wasn't super enticing to me. What was more interesting would be to see the future of Star City. Star City, or Starling City at the beginning, is the entire beginning of the Arrowverse. And it would have been really cool to have a show be a foundation for the entire set of future stories in the Arrowverse that they could have told. They could have had Mia meet Bart and Nora. They could have them exist in a world post-Justice League, and we get to hear some Justice League stories during that time. We get to see a bunch of new villains fight this new iteration of Green Arrow, or we could see old villains who have revived or had their mantles passed down to new characters, like a new Count Vertigo, or what we would have probably have seen, a new version of Deathstroke. Some version of me hopes that they would have been able to do some type of tie-in comic. Painkiller probably would have been the most unique and the most original thing that they would have done in the Arrowverse. I don't know what the presence of Painkiller as a character is in the original DC comics, but in the Arrowverse as we know it, and in the larger scheme of superheroes, Painkiller as a character is very obscure. And the concept of having this anti-hero who has a separate personality in him, and those two personalities clashing with each other as he's a vigilante trying to protect the city, would have been a really interesting thing to see. We don't really have anti-heroes in the Arrowverse, or at least if we do, they more or less become heroes by the end. But with Khalil, he doesn't really have as much control over his morality. He has a killer in him, literally. He can't just get rid of it, so he has to learn how to cope, and that's really cool. Justice U is weird. I guess it would have been kind of a Young Justice-y thing, but then there's a gimmick of them being in a prestigious college for whatever reason. I don't know why that would have been the setting of the show. Couldn't it just been Diggle leads a team of superheroes in Metropolis under the watch of Argus, and that just be the premise of the show? I don't understand how the whole college gimmick would have really led into things. It probably would have just been another high school mystery show like all the shows on CW, but just set in a college setting and with people with superpowers. But it would have been cool to see Diggle again. Would he have been Green Lantern? Who knows at this point? The Brazilian Wonder Girl show. I don't know anything about that iteration of the character, but it would have been at least cool to actually see some Wonder Woman mythology actually be in part of the Arrowverse. I think we get one nod to it in an episode of Legends, but besides that, we don't really get any acknowledgement of the idea of Wonder Woman or the Amazons at all. And Arrowverse does have a history of having characters, their sidekicks or their counterpart versions of themselves, get shows before the actual heroes, a la Supergirl and Batwoman. But at the time that it was being announced, I'm pretty certain it wouldn't have been actually a part of the official Arrowverse. It would have been kind of in its own world, in the same vein as Stargirl and Superman and Lois. But what do you think? Do you think any of these things had any potential, or are you sad? And are you even sad about the Arrowverse ending at all? I know there's definitely people who have wanted the Arrowverse to end for years and have just been trashing it. So they're probably happy. But for me, I'm a little bit sad. It was a big part of my teenage years, and I think it's a real important thing to have happened for the entire landscape of superhero television.